birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. And I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom on the tree, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life.
Stepping over to the second half of the regular season, we've only just now gotten our first two-time winner. This means the cutoff line is dangerously close to even the highest person who is in on the points. Will this mean there will be less give and more take as we get closer to round 10? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 7 of the Goat Locker Racing Truck Series, presented by Jam Printing and Promotions. And you'll see it all live here on Podium Esports. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Roush Racing driver Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes, our director Eddie Smith, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. This should be a fun one with the progressive banking that we've got here at Kansas Speedway, and it's one of our traditional 1.5 milers, Joey.
I'm looking forward to this one. Like you said, traditional 1.5 mile with the progressive banking, but it is a higher grip racetrack with some pretty good degradation. So we get lanes being used all the way down from the bottom, all the way up to the top. I expect the trucks really to kind of use all of the racetrack today.
Same. They're going to be searching around, no doubt, out there. In fact, let's take a look at what our schedule has for our drivers so far this season, and heading off as we just left Iowa. We're here at Kansas for a bit of a Midwest swing, and then it's off over to the East Coast once again with North Wilkesboro off in North Carolina. And then we go super speedway racing for the last of the regular season. Oh boy, Atlanta Motor Speedway. We've seen how crazy that one can be, so you got to try and get things done now so you don't leave it up to chance once we hit March 22nd, and then it's off into the postseason there to try and make the championship at the end of it. But other than this championship, we also want to try and spotlight some of our veterans. And we're changing things up a little bit this week by sharing our first responder. Introducing Mike Browning. Mike has been a firefighter in Iowa for 15 years and is currently serving as an acting chief role and is president of the IAFF Local 1457. Mike's efforts contributed to his crew receiving a Meritorious Unit Award for rescuing a victim from a vehicle that was being crushed between two semis during whiteout conditions. Mike participates in both the Next Gen and Truck Series here at JLR, and we're proud to have him. So a big thank you to Mike for all his hard work. That is definitely at times a thankless job, being a firefighter, and obviously incredibly dangerous. But the championship right now doesn't see Mike up at the top of those top 10. Instead, it is Jonathan Cofield who is leading Jeremy Gardner currently up at the top of this. Now, those top 5 are your drivers who are in with the win so far, but guys such as Brandon Evans, as well as George Jewell, Trevor McManus, Jake Ellingson, and Patrick Drabick are all in, but only on points, and none of them are more than 4 points away from that cutoff line. So it is tight out there, and they're going to have to really work hard to make sure that they stay above that cut line by the time we get to the next round. From there, why don't we take a look at the track info and talk a little bit more about this place, Joey?
Well, we touched on it, the traditional 1.5 mile here in Kansas City. It is a high grip racetrack, and it is the traditional D-shaped 1.5 mile. And the progressive banking, like we mentioned, 17 degrees all the way down at the bottom, a higher, steeper 20 degrees all the way up at the wall. So it provides some varying grip levels depending on where you drive the car on the racetrack. The other thing to note, that D-shaped oval, you're going to see drivers really cut it down through the apron most likely to shorten their qualifying time, and also that sprint to the line off of turn 4. It's important to really guard that bottom.
Yeah, we'll probably be seeing that quite a bit here. Why don't we talk about the race, though, as well for this evening's event? And it's going to be 100 laps around this place, which, of course, is naturally 150 miles. They have 2 green-white checkers attempts, so we will go into that a little bit more. That's essentially overtime if we get a yellow late in the race. They don't have any fast repairs, so if you break it, you bought it. And then the car setups are custom fixed. We'll talk a little bit more about those, and they have a limited tire set to only 3 available in the pit, so 4 total that they could use over the course of the race. Often that's been one of the talking points, is the use of the tires this season, Joey. I get the feeling that that could very much be the case here today.
Well, and last week at Iowa, the first real kind of short track that we saw, we did see a lot of different tire strategies. We saw varying strategies towards the end of the race, with Jeremy Gardner really forcing everybody to come down pit road, and then at a later yellow, everybody kind of responded to it. So here at Kansas, it'll be curious to see who uses the tires when, and if we're going to have another one of these long green flag races, or if it'll be broken up a little bit more like what we saw at Iowa.
And I mean, in typical Midwest fashion, it's pretty hot out here at 129 Fahrenheit on the track surface. Thankfully, air temperature is okay at about 79 Fahrenheit. But my goodness, they're going to be melting those things with the speeds that they can do around this 1.5 mile circuit. There you can see a few of our drivers that are going to be sending us their cameras here today. Hopefully, we won't see too many frustrations as boy, Ryan Pendleton feels like he's in good on this one as he's not even out on track right now.
Well, and remember how we were discussing those points, and second and third was Jeremy Gardner and Ryan Pendleton. And last week at that Iowa finish, let me tell you, there wasn't much between those two cars at the finish line. It was for second place, but holy smokes, it was closer than ever. So I have a feeling that those two might kind of have a little bit of a bone to pick between the two of them.
Oh, we love to see a good rivalry. So we'll see if that carries on here today or not, as I think we're into just the last few seconds of practice. Then it's off to qualifying. They get 2 laps to set their best time. I'm kind of thinking because the track is so hot. I mean, am I right in assuming, Joey, that it's likely the first lap going to be the money lap?
I think it really depends on the cars, or I should say trucks. I always get that confused in the setup they got. Now, sometimes it will be the first lap, especially when the track temperatures are that high. It's usually just kind of burns off the grip. But if the tire pressures are a little bit lower, sometimes that second lap actually might be the quicker of the two.
All right, we'll watch and see as they just wrap this up with the last 10 seconds or so. A little puff of smoke in front of Jeremy Gardner as he is running that low line in the practice. So I expected it to be a high line dominant, but it seems like you're right that they're willing to use just about any bit of the track for today's race based on what we're seeing now. But we'll kind of watch and see if that winds up being so in qualifying itself, which is just now kicking off. Not as big of a field as we saw at the very beginning of the season, but it looks like a few have since joined in since we were kind of waiting in the practice session there. So should have a healthy field, and we'll see who can go quickest as Daniel Cunningham takes off on his warm-up lap.
2 laps available for these drivers in this session, so I'm going to go out there and just try to lay it down and hope for the best. I think track position always important. It's always a talking point. You always want to be further up forward, but at a mile and a half where aerodynamics are really going to come into play, it's not going to be racing like we saw at Iowa where you can really go up there and kind of bait cars into over-unders and whatnot. It is going to be the track position game, and with how fast they're running, you got to be careful about the dirty air.
Down through the tri-oval, Cunningham now swings it into turn one. He is going to stay high, so he seems to like that line here. You can see the brief dotted lines to kind of give them a spot to try and aim for through here as he flies down the backstretch, and now coming up through 3 and 4. Looks like he wants to stay high once again, so he does prefer that better banking up at the top, at least here on the first lap. But what kind of time will he put down as he crosses? And it looks like he scored at a 32.026. That's the first one anybody else now has to match.
And as we saw, Daniel Cunningham really cut down on that apron out of turn 4. The best way to think about it is you're taking the shortest distance to start finish. You don't need to use up all of that extra racetrack, so the drivers oftentimes, they'll yank that wheel despite having that hard transition down to the banking because it does shave that distance to the start-finish line.
So this time around, he'll cross, and he does go quicker by about 4/10. So yeah, second lap does seem to be the one that you want in the end, as he'll jump up to third position. Still not quicker than Cofield, who is on his second lap. Drabick just toppled him up at the top temporarily, as Cofield just crossed the line to 31.568. That's not going to put him back on pole. Barkas right now has it in the number 15 truck at a 31.463.
That is an excellent run from that number 15 of Jamie Barkas. We're going to have to see if it hangs on as Brandon Evans slides his way into second place, and we're watching James Kaufman get up to speed on the racetrack. But Joa, of the cars that haven't put down a lap time, I'm looking at Trevor McManus in the number 9 car. He's always been towards the front.
Yeah, that's a good point. So that number 9 is just now getting up to speed. I think this is his warm-up lap currently. He'll run the high side. Let's see if he cuts all the way down to the apron here, or if he's going to run a little bit up like we saw earlier with our Oregon car. And he is, again, going to just ride in the middle on this first timed lap starting. Interesting. I wonder if there's some sort of trick to that drivers don't want to go on the apron on the start of that first lap.
And that's kind of interesting. If we know that the second lap is going to be the hotter of the two, you might as well not upset the car. Just kind of get in the flow, get your first lap over and done with, put one on the board, and then on lap number 2, you can go all the way down towards the apron like we see McManus there do now.
Yeah, that time he definitely tries to shorten it as much as possible. 31.982, and that'll put him down in 20th, but we know that first lap tends to be a bit slower here. This time he's going down to the bottom. Truck looked like it was sliding, and this lap is not going to count, and he knows it. Immediately slaps the wheel as he slaps the wall.
Here in iRacing, if you make contact with that wall and get a 1X, I doubt the lap will count. And even if it does, it just does not produce the lap time that you want. Trevor McManus crosses the line It's not going to count. He's going to stay there and actually slide back to 22nd as Ellingson takes over 21st.
Ooh, that could hurt him in the race starting from the back. But with qualifying now officially over, it's time to head off to our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
And with that, that takes us to our starting grid for tonight's race. And Jamie Barkas has it on pole in his number 15 truck with Brandon Evans starting next to him. Patrick Drabick will begin in P3 and Jacob Ellingson starting fourth. Then you've got row 3 with Ryan Pendleton to the inside, Jamie Mullins to the outside. Regis Clark starts 7th and Jonathan Cofield will start in P8. Row 5 has Jeremy Gardner in 9th and then James Goshen rounding out your top 10.
Then in 11th, we have Daniel Cunningham, one of our previous winners. Chuck Phelps lined up in the 12th spot. James Kaufman in 13th. Stephen McDonald in the number 68 starts 14th with Alan Marshall next to him in 15th. Brandon Wallace in 16th back here. George Jewell in 17th with Kyle Plumstead in 18th. Matt Knight starting 19th, and Timothy Stubblefield in 20th. Got a couple more here. Doug Ellingson in 21st, and like we were just watching in qualifying, Trevor McManus rolling off in 22nd.
And unfortunately for fans of Mark McCrary, he has had a connection issue, so I'm not sure if he's going to be able to grit up the start of this race. He's already under the gun to try and at least stay on the lead lap here. If he can get back out there and reconnect soon, then he's got to hope that we get a quick caution so that he doesn't get lapped early on in this event. But I don't see him out there on the pit lane quite yet, so he might not be returning for some time and will likely be going those laps down. As we come on to the back stretch, there has been just a little change, Joey, in the temperature. It's gone up 2 more degrees. It's 131.
And I've been noticing this from iRacing. I think it's a little bit drastic on the difference between the ambient temperature to the track temperature, but guess what? Everybody's got to deal with it. Everybody's in the same boat. You better get on board and grab an oar.
All right, pace car getting ready to peel off. Jamie Barkas starting from the top spot. Can he control this race from the front, or will he have his hands full with a lot of fast drivers behind him? Green flag is out, and we start to accelerate away. Barkas gets a pretty decent jump. Evans actually might have some trouble as Drabick is getting below him.
And it's too wide for the second, third, and fourth place position, but it really is all that number 15 of Jamie Barkas, and now Drabick gets pushed out to that second place, so we're too wide for third down the back straightaway for the first time.
Pendleton going to try and carry that momentum as well. Bottom line, not a hindrance here when they're still getting up to speed and don't have the things fully wound up. So it looks like he is going to try to make the move, but can't quite. They'll go back to single file as they cross the line. It's Barkas, Drabic, Pendleton, your top three after the first lap.
And what you were talking about pre-show there, look at all these trucks migrate to the top side. They were all down low for qualifying, but this is lap number 2. I'm pretty surprised to see everybody move up top. I wonder if this is just where we're going to see everybody run, or if it's just a little bit of follow the leader.
Well, Gardner's going to try low. You can see him in that 42, and then he'll drift back up high, just slicing across the bow of Jacob Ellingson, who now will try the low line for himself, or is he going to stay in the middle as they dive into turn 1? He's going to go for the middle line. He can drift up if he wants to as we hop on board with the 42, and indeed he does.
Ellingson slides right into that spot there as we ride on board with Jeremy Gardner here. Now pokes his nose down to the inside of Ellingson. So a little bit of back and forth. But one thing to note, that bottom side did promote that 27 in terms of the position off of 1 and 2. But the 42 kind of feels a little trapped down low. He's still side by side. I wonder if he can complete the pass here in 1 and 2.
Yeah, I wonder if it'll depend more on driver and how they like to race these cars, because remember, it is a fixed setup, so everybody's running the same thing out there and theoretically should work the same, but your driving style might dictate how it goes. Is a little bit of 3 wide in the background there, farther down in the pack. It has been clean, but they've been unable to separate. You can see them here now, still sorting themselves out.
What I find really interesting about this pack further back here is they're all over the racetrack. It's really only the top 5, top 6 maybe that's running the very top lane. Everybody else either down low or in the middle, like we're seeing Trevor McManus here. And speaking of McManus, the number 9 car, let's see, he's already up 7 positions, making his way forward.
In fact, add that to 8 now, so gets another one going around the outside once again. A whole train of cars down on the bottom. They didn't get the memo of what the guys at the front did, apparently. McManus is just eating them up.
So I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on here for a second, Joe, because I love to talk about strategy. I wonder if we're going to see 2 different tire wear kind of wars going on. The high lane versus the low lane. Everybody that has speed right now running up top. Is it going to burn the tire off, or is it going to stick around?
That's a good question as well. So we might have to stay patient to really kind of see how this will unfold and make some notes about who's doing what out there. Boy, still in the middle of it, that 9 car wants to try and take it 3 wide again between Kaufman and Evans. Can't quite get his truck in there. He backs out of it.
We're going to try to go 3 wide as McManus pokes his nose to the outside of Brandon Evans, and then he checks up. Now he gets 2 punts from behind, but everybody saves it. That was a close one.
Not the way he wanted this to go. He'll lose a few truck lengths on both Evans and Kaufman, but he doesn't lose position with everybody behind him, giving a huge lift to try and stay out of trouble. Now it looks like Kaufman going to try and get up underneath his rival and see if he can, or excuse me, Evans going to get up underneath Kaufman rather, see if he can push him forward as they go through 1 and 2 down onto the backstretch.
Still think it's that number 9 truck of McManus is the fastest of the second group by far, and he's been using that outside lane. He's dragging along, I believe, the 82 of Alan Marshall as well. He's that second black and green truck on the screen there. So I think the number 9 working his way forward, and others are taking notes. They see McManus and they see the speed that he's got. Sometimes you just got to follow the carrot and chase him along.
Hopping on board now, watching forward from McManus, seeing if he could get himself a little bit of clear air here and get ahead of Kaufman. After that, it's a big gap up to Cunningham.
Evans almost gets turned around in turn number 3. I don't know how we didn't have a multiple car wreck. He got hit from behind going into turn 3, and wow, what a save. He was almost perpendicular 90 degrees, Joe.
It's not the first time we've seen a car get a little bit sideways. Let's take a look at the replay here and see just how sideways he gets as the 39 brings it up into turn 3. There's the help. Wow, that was a monster slide.
And credit to everybody behind. I wasn't sure which truck number that was, but everybody checked up when they saw the 39 get sideways. did not go piling into him. A great job by all of the drivers.
It is one thing that impresses me about this series is the camaraderie in the group. They're all looking out for one another. As hard as they do fight, they want to get to the finish first, and they're trying not to wreck themselves and others when they see those big incidents start to form. As we watch them come through 3 and 4 once again, back up to the top with Drabick ahead of Pendleton. Hasn't been able to fully run away from them, but he's got himself an arm's length.
And I think that Patrick Drabick is definitely looking for a little bit of redemption, a little bit of kind of a momentum starting run here at Kansas. Things didn't go his way at Iowa, and he seems rather calm, cool, and collected out front. I mean, Joe, look at him just behind the wheel. Nothing is kind of phasing him right now. He's just doing laps.
Well, I guess that's not a bad thing right now since we're so early in this. These guys want to kind of tick them off and get them under their belts back there. It almost looked like that was Cunningham and Goshen getting very close to the wall. I think, thankfully, they did not have an accident from that exit of turn 4. Seeing a little bit of cars going down to the bottom. I think that was Gardner in the 42 who was kind of dipping his toes.
Something else to note, our pole sitter of Jamie Barkus in the number 15, he's fallen back to 6th place and actually just had the 53 of Jonathan Cofield go by. That was that first truck on the low lane here, and we got to remember that Jonathan Cofield won last week. He's our first repeat winner, and if I'm seeing that truck start to go down to the low lane, I would at least start to watch him, see what he's up to.
That's Cofield right now in front of us in the 53. He's also trying that bottom side a little bit, but Barkus is going to stick up with the top at least for now. See if he does it differently here. No, looks like he'll continue to ride up towards the wall while his rival heads down south towards the white line, and then they'll rejoin off the exit.
And we could just be seeing different phases of the tire too, different kind of areas of when the truck likes to turn or doesn't like to turn. It could be that at the beginning of the run, you want to run all the way up top, and then as it starts to kind of get too loose, you might want to bring it down to the bottom of the racetrack where it'll really start to tighten the thing up. But certainly right now, Jonathan Cofield working the bottom of the racetrack.
And I am watching both Gardner and Cofield, and it seems like off the corners, they aren't as quick down the straights because of that, which makes sense. We have often seen that with a high line gives you a much better slingshot coming off of them. So wonder if that will come into play later in the race if anybody is trying to make passes. As the 42 can't seem to overlap Ellingson enough, and you'll see right here, yeah, just can't keep up with him.
And I don't think that we're going to see a gap just all of a sudden form where the low lane is going to drastically be faster than the high lane or vice versa. I just think it's going to come at little moments each lap of which tire is going to wear a little bit less than the other lane, and eventually we will see kind of the low lane form or the high lane form. And you're right, Joe, the top lane carries the momentum around, but it's been this low lane of Jeremy Gardner and Jonathan Cofield. The other thing I mentioned is that this is a high-speed 1.5 miles. They could be going down there simply to get some clean air on the front end.
That's a good point. The aero wake does have an effect on these trucks, and maybe they just prefer to not be following in line from those ahead, and that might save the tires in a way itself, I'm sure, not having them slide across and having to provide that mechanical grip with the aero pushing it down into the corner. Just about ahead of the 27 now. Ellingson a little bit slower this last lap around in comparison. Gardner starting to make the bottom line work.
And where I really saw that 27 kind of lose the time was on corner exit. He had a huge tail wag moment, and actually here comes Jonathan Cofield, the next car that's been running the bottom of the racetrack. He's going to go by the 27 of Jake Ellingson there. So maybe that top lane burning off the rear tires a little bit earlier than the bottom lane. And when that happens, yes, loose is fast, but if it gets too loose, you have to lift off that throttle to save the car.
By the way, McManus finally made his way past Kaufman, who I think is also going to lose a spot to George Jewell just now. So Trevor up to 10th position. He's made short work after messing up his qualifying, getting by most of the field, but he still has about half of it left to go if he wants a shot at trying to battle with the leaders. Still, we see the 23 of Pendleton and the 42 of Gardner going up against one another. That bottom line has been giving a couple positions now to the 42. Can he move his way into second?
I mentioned it pre-race. These two drivers were the two that had the neck-and-neck finish at Iowa for second place last weekend. So it was Pendleton going around Gardner then, and right now it's Gardner going around Pendleton. And I actually think that Drabick out front might have brushed the wall there off of turn number 2. He is all of a sudden slowed, and these two have caught him.
I saw that as well. We just got a little puff of smoke coming off of there, and they're trying to settle out that battle for P2 so that Gardner can maybe look up and challenge P1, take the lead away, wanted to turn in, but Pendleton found the 42 underneath him and couldn't do it. He had to back out of the corner, so that'll lose him that spot. Before this battle for the lead erupts, I do want to mention one of our sponsors, Jam Printing and Promotions. Since forming in 2013, JAM has contributed printing and promotional sponsorships to more than 60 local nonprofits, with a primary focus on organizations that assist veterans, women, and children. They have been with Goat Locker Racing since the very beginning. Local and veteran certified, when they do well, they do good in the community. And it's a good thing I got that read in, because in the time that it took me to go through that, already Gardner has caught up to Drabick.
And I can report there is some damage, or at least there was a little bit of damage on the right rear of Patrick Drabick's car. Remember, we said that he might have touched the wall coming up out of turn number 2. And even if there isn't any damage physically on the car, it's definitely rattled that driver, because Jeremy Gardner is coming with the head of steam.
And we've seen Jeremy just continue to try and hit the bottom of the corners since very early in this race, and now he's starting to see a few more drivers join him. Cofield, who's been doing it as well, is followed him up into third, and I think that's Ryan Pendleton who's following them down low, sitting in fourth. Is this where the crossover starts to happen between the tires of those who are running the bottom and those who are running the top?
We're about to find out. I really feel like the fastest car on the racetrack is the 53 right here in third place. That's Jonathan Cofield. A 33.5 that last time around, 33.7 from both of our front two. Is now we get Gardner all the way down on the inside, but he's going to get choked up on the exit one more time. So the momentum's going to go back to Drabick on the high lane, but here comes Cofield to join the party.
I was going to say Cofield is going to complicate things here, because if he gets a bad run and bobbles on the exit, then of course, you know, Jonathan is going to be trying to pick up those pieces. And we're seeing what we've been seeing before. The bottom line cannot drift up and it can't carry the speed, but now it is almost going to be 3 wide. 42 has to back out of it. Cofield's going to give it a shot.
So Gardner is forced to run the middle here, but I think that Cofield is going to get choked up on the exit of turn 2. Ooh, but he slides. He clears himself in front of the 42. I'm not sure how wise that really was. Here comes Gardner fighting back for that second.
And in the background, that was Barkas, who was getting slippery off of turn 2. Had to chase it across the track, but thankfully didn't wreck it. Meanwhile, 2 wide for second place, Cofield and Gardner. Will they get a little too distracted with one another and allow Patrick a chance to run away?
I tell you what, Gardner thought about clearing himself in front of Cofield, and here he's going to try to do it off of 2. He's got the space, and now he's going to throw a big block down the back straightaway. I think that Patrick Drabick out front, loving what he's seen in his mirror.
Giving him just those few more laps up at the front when it looked like these two were the faster trucks, pretty heavily coming up to him for a number of laps, but they're getting a little bit too distracted by this fight. They're going to go side by side into turn 1 once again, giving Drabick about a 2-car length lead over the pair of them. They're going to have to settle this soon. I think they're their own worst enemies. At this stage is another big shakeup for Gardner.
And I think that just kind of proves my point that the high lane, it is a little bit more loose, all right? If you like that and you don't mind the truck kind of wagging the tail off of the corners, well, go drive it up top, because that's exactly what it's going to give you. However, if you're not comfortable with that yaw angle, that sliding off the corner, it can catch you out like we just saw it do to the 42.
Ooh, well, that was an interesting move, trying to pull the over-under there, and Gardner just about made it work, but the 53 pinched him down enough that he couldn't manage to get by. As we watch them from on board, our leader, Drabick, Now down into turn 3. Cofield focuses once again on the leader, manages to get side by side behind them. A very close moment between Gardner and the wall. I think he stayed off of it, but I wonder if those tires are now shot.
You see the 53 just stick to the bottom side of the racetrack here. I don't expect him to change his strategy at all unless Drabic takes that bottom lane, forces the 53 to do something different. But the 07, the creamsicle car, has been out front the entire race, stuck up top towards the wall, and I think that's what his strategy is going to be. That's where he is comfortable.
Starting to hold alongside him this time. Coming off the corner, you could see how much quicker Drabic is as he just about puts him fully behind him. Not enough that he can get up to the high side, so staying pinched down to the bottom. Cofield can't swing in fully from the safer barrier as they come off of turn 2 again. He cannot do anything because that truck is there to the outside, blunting his momentum.
I think there's two methods here that Cofield can do, is that he can keep chipping away on the bottom side of the racetrack, and you see him take a little bit more of a widening arc going into turns 3 there. Now he's got the momentum off of 4. This is really what he was waiting for. Just take each of those little chips off each lap, and here you go, cleared. New leader to the point, Jonathan Cofield.
He put a lot of trust in Drabic there coming off of 4 as they came mere inches apart from one another coming off the turn. Drabic almost came under threat from Gardner for a moment. He's going to get a better shot coming off the corner as Cofield still a little bit on the lower line. Cannot fully embrace the swing out to the outside as they'll return to the start-finish line this time. Can he get up high? No. He'll stay out there. The 07 is unwilling to die.
I feel as long as Drabic is able to hit his marks. Oh, never mind. We've got a yellow flag. I believe it might be the 36 car of George Jewell turned around on the front straightaway.
Indeed, and I think this happened mostly on his own. I think he had a bit of help, but his spin started with him getting loose. Chuck Feltz going to just send him the rest of the way around. Watch George here coming off of turn 4. You talked about the looseness of that high line. This is a good example.
He's just going to get all sorts of yawed out. And then really from that angle, it looked more like the rear car made impact with George Jewell. But trust me, the 36 was well off of the gas coming down the racetrack. And unfortunately, Chuck Feltz here just piled right into him.
Yeah, look how quickly it happened. He couldn't do much to try and avoid that. He needed to try and exit that corner as well and take his racing line. And unfortunately, that meant that they would converge. As we're going to watch it from onboard Jewell. Yeah, you could tell it was happening. He starts to counter steer, but by that point, good luck.
So our first yellow flag of the night on lap number 32 or so, and I expect pit road to be a very, very busy place.
Same. It has only gotten worse out there. I think it's 134 Fahrenheit on the track. This is one of the hotter races I've ever seen in all of my coverage on iRacing. I think the highest I've ever seen was in the 140s. So this is definitely close to those as they come down towards their pit stalls, desperately screaming for tires.
Make sure to not slide through the pit box. Don't beat yourself on the racetrack out there, and I expect everybody to take 4 tires. I don't think this is a 2-tire opportunity. After we've done so many laps out there, I really do expect everybody to fill it up and take 4 freshies.
I mean, there might be a brave soul, but I don't think there'll be a smart soul. But coming off the pit lane, Cofield will beat out Drabic. Gardner going to come out in 3rd. Looks like Pendleton will be 4th. And yeah, no drivers took 2 tires. They all went for the 4 call. A couple of them, looks like maybe taking a bit of repairs as well, as they're still sitting with their pit crews trying to get them worked on. Well, we've got a chance. I want to mention another of our sponsors, Premier Racing Setups. We talked about this a little bit earlier. They're the longest running setup shop on iRacing, established in 2016. And they offer many different options to help take your sim racing career to the highest level. With over 50,000 customers worldwide, they've got the tools you need to compete with the best. And we want to give them a special thank you for donating all of these setups for the Truck Series all season long. So that's what we mentioned with the custom-made fixed setup that they run out here on the track. And pretty much all season, the drivers have had nothing but positive things to say. So definitely a shining endorsement from this league, it seems.
Well, when I look back at the races that we've had, there's been multiple lanes everywhere we go,
Yeah.
especially at Iowa, especially here at Kansas. It just, you're right. And that's what allows the drivers to do that is the setup on the truck.
It's made it really fun for us. We've been enjoying the heck out of this series. So let's get restarted and go once again. It's only our first caution of the race, and it does look like those may be tied to these drivers toward the end of the stints. I've seen that before, Joey, where you don't have a lot of cautions, but they seem to come at regular intervals.
Yeah, and there's lots of comers and goers like there always is in a NASCAR race. And we got George Jewell on the screen right here, who's going to be all the way in the back. The other one that I really noticed fell so far back, Brandon Evans in that number 39. He started up there on the front row. Well, he finds himself in 12th. We always talk about him falling back at the beginning and saving those tires. Well, he was the fastest truck on the racetrack. He was just starting to crawl his way back, but he fell back so far. The yellow flag came out at the wrong time, and he finds himself buried in the middle of the pack.
Oof, yeah, down 10 spots from where he began this race. So he's already chewed up that set of tires and has nothing to show for it. Does he switch it around here and try to push a bit? Or will he continue to try and save, considering we're still only a third of the way through today's race? I mean, you got to be a smart driver in all this, so I wonder if he needs to just pick it up a bit, as the number 9, in the meantime, has been full bore and is now up 11 spots.
And we were watching him in qualifying, look at him getting a little tap there from James Kaufman before the restart, saying, hey, I'm ready to go here. I'm following you through here, bud. But the number 9 did not have the qualifying that he wanted to, had to start all the way in the back of the pack, and he is making his way forward. So Trevor McManus, the caution fell at the right time for this driver.
It did, really did for him. So he's going to try and use that to his advantage and again charge and see what he can do to this field as the pace car getting ready to peel off. It'll be Cofield up 7 from the beginning on this one, while Drabick started on the front row initially, is going to begin, or excuse me, on the second row initially, going to begin on the front row this time. Green flag is out, and looks like Patrick gets a pretty good start. In fact, Gardner, for some reason, seems like he was caught napping.
Yeah, just didn't get rolling on the bottom lane, and Pendleton is going to try to close him out of the bottom groove there, which he does. So Ryan Pendleton started 4th, now up to 3rd on the restart. Look at the 15 of Jamie Barkas. He's got a second win down the straightaway.
He wants to try and make up for the loss of positions there early on, ducking down to the bottom now, following just behind Gardner, is also in behind him. Let's not forget Jacob Ellingson, who looked quick at the start, but then kind of dropped back himself. So what kind of ebb and flow are we going to get here at the beginning of this one? Gardner continues to run the bottom line, but so does Cofield up at the very front of the field.
Well, I see drivers that have picked the bottom line, and I see drivers that have picked the top line, right? So we've got Drabick. He is dedicated to the top side. Cofield dedicated to the bottom. Gardner dedicated to the bottom. And I think now we're going to get that first green flag run with Cofield out in clean air. We're really going to be able to compare the two lines.
Yeah, that's a good point as we hop on board with Jacob Ellingson now. Coming down into turns 1 and 2. He's going to run that bottom side like many drivers are starting to switch towards doing, realizing how well it worked for their rivals in the first stint. Still side by side, though, between Barkas and Gardner in front of him.
And typically when the tires are fresh and brand new, you can get away with a lot more. So these drivers might be using the top side of the racetrack for the first handful of laps, really be aggressive with the car when they know they can save it, and then migrate towards the bottom. But I really feel like if we're going to see altering, changing lines between the drivers, it's going to come now right smack in the middle when they see it happening in front of their face.
Getting back to single file now through much of the field. First side-by-side is McManus versus Cunningham. Trevor with a couple more to his name, all the way up 14 spots now. You can see him there in the background, still dealing with that 08 car, 08 truck, really. and sliding up across the apron. See a bit of back and forth between Drabic and Cofield. Now, how did Cofield lose the lead here?
Now, Drabic got a great run out of turn 2 the last lap and went down to the inside of Cofield into turn 3. And why I say that, that's important because that put Jonathan Cofield on the top of the racetrack, somewhere he hasn't been all race long, and Drabic just drove right underneath him.
Oh, and into the wall. Pendleton scrapes the safer barrier. Let's see if he got away with that without too much damage. We're going to hop on board with him. He's been running up high here, and maybe he should jump a little bit low with how close he's been getting to that outside wall.
Sometimes you like going down low because it provides you that little bit of buffer when you run up top and the car steps out on you. You just don't have any sort of margin for error. And I'm actually seeing Drabic out front. He starts up top and then he really kind of migrated to the middle of the racetrack there in 3 and 4. I like seeing this. He's not dedicated to one line. He's willing to search around on the racetrack, and that's what you need to do. You just don't throw the same pitch over and over and over, especially when you got somebody breathing down your neck.
The dynamic track as well obviously changes in iRacing. If they're putting a lot of heat into one of the lines, then they're going to have to kind of look somewhere else and try and switch it up a bit. In fact, coming off the corner once again, I almost thought Pendleton gave another slap to that exit of turn 4, but I think he got away with it. Hasn't lost anything to his credit. He's still with those top 2.
And these 3 have kind of gapped out over the 42 of Jeremy Gardner, which I'm pretty surprised about. He kind of seems like the cork in the bottle, which is absolutely un-Jeremy Gardner. Like, I wonder if the 42 either had an issue, maybe tapped the wall somewhere, or he's kind of saving a little bit of tire very early on in this green flag run.
I mean, it could be either at this stage. It's hard to say based on what we've seen from him previously. Definitely stacking them up. That is Barkus, Ellingson, McManus. Oh, and jumping up to the high side. McManus going to go for another move as we get a little bit of side-by-side racing briefly in front of them. But my goodness, this pack coming alive. Trevor now up 16 positions.
And he is dedicated to the top. You see him swing it way out wide there. He's got the 15 of Jamie Barkus now kind of throwing a block on exit. So McManus is going to take it 3 wide down on the apron. He's going to clear them all, take it 2 for 1, the 9 up to 4th.
Excellent spatial awareness. Yeah, my goodness, he did get them both in the same straightaway. That is impressive stuff. And that was with cutting across Ellingson in the process. Another car behind them, just clipping the outside of turn 2. A move down to the inside by Gardner, trying to overtake Barkus now.
And the 15 is trying to carry all sorts of momentum. He's the truck on the top side of the racetrack, and he's actually got a fantastic run on McManus, but he chooses not to poke the nose. He's actually going to push the number 9 car. He realizes the speed that Trevor's got.
Yeah, latch onto him and just try and follow him up the order. I think at this stage as they come off, I was going to say, I about thought we were going to have a wreck, but a good exit from Barkus somehow, despite making contact, puts him underneath Trevor McManus.
And that was a little bit of a questionable move from the 15 for sure. He was trying to get up alongside the 9 and just had no idea that Gardner was down below him.
Thankfully, Gardner did not get spun by that, but boy, they're lucky because it certainly looked like that was going to be a car just buried in the inside wall any moment. Barkus not giving up as he still fights below McManus. Looks like Trevor gets a better shot off of turn 2, and he's going to chop him off this time going down low.
The 9 running smack in the middle of the racetrack. We haven't seen that too much, and actually the 15 gets choked up off of 4. So that's going to allow Jake Ellingson now in the 27 to go down on the apron. This might allow Trevor a little bit of breathing room to finally kind of run away from this pack while the 27 and 15 battle it out.
Off of turn 2, drivers weaving to set themselves up. Another good run from Barkus, but he doesn't have enough straightaway. He's going to go back to the bottom while McManus returns to the top. In fact, they're all fanned out. What you were saying earlier comes true. Drivers just picking any which way that works.
The low lane is the shortest way around. The top lane has the most banking and the most grip, and When you put two trucks in either lane, well, guess what? The middle lane is where the rest of the clean air is, and that's what we're starting to see. Everybody just searching for their place on the track.
Now, as they come onto the backstretch, McManus looks like he's got himself a bit more of a buffer at this stage. Can he start to run away and catch up with Pendleton, who is about 2 seconds up the road? All that squabbling means that he's got work to do to catch the podium drivers with half the race left to do it.
Well, and to talk about the front three, because we've been watching this battle up here, look at Patrick Drabick try to run away from Cofield and Ryan Pendleton. This is the biggest gap our leader has had all night, and especially the furthest into a green flag run.
Exactly. This almost 1 second lead over the 53 certainly looks pretty good at this stage. But as they come off of turn 4, Pendleton is regrouped from his little bit of contact with the wall earlier, not letting it phase him, not letting it slow him down as he hassles that number 53. As this is happening, real quick, we do want to mention another big sponsor of this series called Veterans for Life Foundation. The goal of the Veterans for Life Foundation is to both revitalize communities and supporting military veterans and their families' successful transition back into civilian life. Through support services, counseling, and education, they provide permanent, affordable housing to veterans and their families. So big thank you to them for all the great efforts that they put forward to that cause. Meanwhile, Cofield and Pendleton, the battle rages on, and now a bit of blinking from the 53 just complicates it even more.
Never want to see that out there, whether it's your blinking or a competitor's blinking. You just want a consistent internet connection, and Cofield has been dedicated to the bottom. Ryan Pendleton not all the way towards the wall like we see our leader in the 07, but he's kind of running 3/4 of the way up there is what I would call it. And I think right about now, about 20 laps in, is where we start to see that transition period, Joe. Remember that yellow flag came out about 32, 33, and I felt that the low lane was the fastest lane at this point, or I should say at that point. I feel like now is kind of that transition, that crossover period.
It was very close for Pendleton again, this time off of turn 2. Didn't hit the wall. Meanwhile, I'm glad we took a look at this because I was kind of glancing back here as well. McManus unable to get away from Barkas, and Ellingson actually looks like his truck is maybe starting to have that transition as well, that it's coming to the fore as he's saved his stuff a bit.
I know that we've talked about the 9 and him being able to rocket forward, but I'm looking at the data, Joe. The last lap time of 33.6, it's been about a 1/10 of a second off of the leaders the last few laps now. So I wonder if the 9 really used up all of those tires to get to the front of this pack, and now everybody behind is kind of chomping at the bit saying, hey, it's time to go.
Yeah, I'd say as we almost go 3 wide here, Ellingson, Barkas, and Gardner also getting him kind of involved in this. He's going to cut down back behind Ellingson. This might be finally what Trevor needs to get away from them. No, once again, up in that high side. Barkas very good off the turns.
It's just going to be, I think, a little bit of that low lane chipping away every single lap here as we ride on board with James Goshen having a good run inside of the top 10. And this is what I love about Kansas Speedway. We've got trucks low, we've got trucks up top, and it is just pick your lane, find the cleanest air, and James Goshen is either going to ride the rim around the top or try to find the cleanest air. And check this out. That low lane is working for the 53 again.
He's on the hunt with Drabick. He's managed to reel him back in and is going to see if he can take that lead away. In fact, this looks very similar. Whoa, big moment for Drabick. He'll keep it from hitting the wall or the driver next to him, but he's lost his momentum.
And I noticed that Cofield was doing a little bit of side draft on entry, really trying to pull up alongside of him, and I wonder if that just maybe got in the headspace of Drabick a little bit, but had that big-time loose moment like you were saying off of turn number 4. And I really feel like the further we go into this run, the faster the low lane is going to get. And in fact, here goes Jamie Barkas looking down the inside of that 9 that was so fast up top for so long.
Yeah, this is 2 drivers kind of going opposite directions there before, but now they're both trying to push together up to the front and can't seem to decide who is the quicker amongst them. Side by side behind them as well. Ellingson still battling with Gardner on the low line as they come through 1 and 2 onto the back stretch. All this has done is meant that they continue to stay stagnantly about 2 seconds behind the leaders. They look fast, but they're not showing it.
I've got my eye on that 42. See that blue and white 42? That's Jeremy Gardner, and I made the comment that he fell way back in the beginning of this green flag run, and I really do feel like he was tire saving. The other thing about the 42, he's been dedicated to the low lane, just like Jonathan Cofield has all race. If that's going to save the tires, if that's done exactly what he's done on this green flag run, he should be the fastest of these 4 right here.
Down into 3 and 4 once again, almost pushing Barkas through the corner. Gardner getting dangerously close to the rear of that truck and getting pushed off to the infield. McManus tries to save it. He goes flying over the grass. He keeps it pointed forward, and he doesn't bring out the yellow because of that, but that is bad news for him as he goes straight to the back.
And it was just another loose moment off of turn number 4, so we've seen that catch a couple drivers out, and here he is on the apron, just trying to wheel the thing around. So watch the black and silver number 9, watch the hands, just huge counter steer moment, and turns it into a Pro 2 truck through the grass. Great save, and hey, you know what? Tip of the cap not to go down onto pit road and get that penalty.
Absolutely phenomenal job. He is actually, I think, heading into pit lane now, because he stayed down on the apron all the way around. I wonder if something's wrong with the truck after that.
I don't think so, Joe. I think that he is just screaming for tires at this point, and he lost so much track position. I think that he might just be waving the white flag on this one.
This is a bit early, and if this is his set, he hopes we'll take him to the end if we stay green. I mean, that's almost a 40-lap stint. That's going to be a long time on that one set, and he's going to be in the same boat towards the end of the race. But we could still get a yellow, and that will change things, but he is now already a lap down.
Kind of an interesting point you bring up, because he will have the fastest truck on the track, and once everybody does come down pit road for their green flag cycles, he should have leapfrogged up a little bit, but you're right, he would have to go 10 laps longer than that current stint that he just did. His tires are going to be in rough shape at the end.
So, I mean, things could happen that could bring him back, but it's looking very unlikely at this stage that he'll be a factor. In fact, as he returns to the circuit, he's 2 laps down from the leader. We check in with Evans in the meantime. Mr. Likes to Save Tires is starting to come forward once again, but he's still only up to 8th.
See where he's running on the racetrack, right down to the bottom here, and the car in front of him is Daniel Cunningham in that yellow number 08. Remember, Daniel was one of our previous winners earlier this season, so he knows how to find victory lane. This driver right here, though, the 39, I feel like he's had kind of race-winning efforts, but more often than not finds himself in the wrong track position quite often.
Yeah, if he could just hook up the speed with the tire saving, he'd be an almost unstoppable force.
We just had a 3-wide moment right in front of us going into turn number 3 there. Sorry to cut you off, Joe, but this is Pendleton and Barkas and Gardner all fighting it out.
Yeah, Barkas will come out ahead of that trio. Gardner was the one stuck in the middle, and Ellingson will drop to the back of them. That slowed them up quite a bit. Daniel Cunningham gains a bunch of ground on those 3. Let's see what they look like off the exit of turn 2, where Barkas usually gets quite a good shot down the backstretch and is often trying to make the passes but can't seem to complete them. He still remains in P4, though, so he's leading this second group, if you will.
Well, and maybe let's talk about this 15 for just a little bit, because he was our pole sitter, but then in that first green flag run, he fell way back as Jake Ellingson in the 27 comes down pit road. Now, this is splitting this final stage. They just did 33 laps, so if you pit now, you'll have 33, 34 laps to go, so he's just essentially splitting this final green flag run. But what I was going to say about that 15, fell back early, has done a great job to really recover the speed on the racetrack, and is running solidly inside the top 5 on pace.
Ellingson doesn't look too thrilled about how things are going based on his facial expressions. I also heard Barkus announce that he's going to be pitting in. And yeah, I see Pendleton pitting. Looks like Mullins is also, no, Mullins is staying out. But yeah, a bunch of cars are going to be joining to try and use this as the time to go. Those who stay out could get undercut, or they could wind up having fresher tires at the end.
And I tell you what, there's a couple cars that are pushing the limits on pit entry. I think that maybe Jake Ellingson got a speeding penalty, and the other one that I was keeping my eye on was Jamie Barkus. It actually
Oh,
looks like
no.
he's got a black flag too, and this might have been from pit commitment. He might have gone over the yellow cone.
After what had been a pretty phenomenal day for him, that is pretty much a death knell for him as well. There is Jamie. Oh, and you can tell he's just as upset about that. Doesn't think that it was merited, but unfortunately, when it comes to the sim, that's a pretty black and white thing. You can't argue that one.
And I don't know if it was speeding going in or if it was driving over the cone. I noticed that he was just wide of pit lane on entry, so that might have been it. But yes, very, very unfortunate for a driver that was really on the comeback charge.
So right now, the highest driver who took a stop within that set is Patrick Drabick. Cofield's going to stay out. Gardner, Evans, Cunningham, McDonald, all still out on track trying to carry these tires as long as they can. What this does is it can potentially trap all those drivers who just pitted a lap down, and they'll be in a better spot there, those who waited if a yellow comes out. But they're also now frantically losing time every lap.
We were watching the 53 there. This is a battle a little bit further back. This is Chuck Phelps right here riding on board the number 75. He's currently chasing Jamie Mullins right in front of him, and neither one of these two drivers have pitted yet. And I gotta wonder, I think that these trucks can make it quite a ways on fuel. It's just that everybody took this green flag run as kind of 70 laps down the middle, and that's why they split it there at about 33, 34 laps into the stint.
Yeah, I think they can go pretty far, but it looks like Cofield is going to give it up, and he pits in. But Chuck Phelps, who has not pitted yet, will muscle his way onwards and hope that he can carry those tires as far as possible.
I'm just really curious because I don't have the hard data on how far they can run. They gotta make it another 30 laps or so. That would be about 70 laps on a stint of tires or on a stint of fuel out there. I'm not sure if they can do that on a mile and a half. I think that might be stretching a little bit too far. I'd expect everybody to have to come in.
Yeah, I think you're right. Even still, it's going to be fascinating to see how this strategy plays out if we stay green. Also, we're getting word that it was about 1:30 for both Barkus and Goshen, which we're suspecting is a confirmation that it was an unsafe pit entry for hitting the cone. As now our Oregon car, the 08, is going to take his 4 tires and then be back out and on his way.
So that leaves of the front runners, Jeremy Gardner and Brandon Evans still on the racetrack. Now there's 3 others, including Jamie Mullins, Chuck Phelps, and Brandon Wallace that have not yet come down pit road. But the 42 and the 39, they're running pretty close together here, doing about 33.8 second lap times, and they're both running the bottom. And the thing to note here, the further they stay out on the racetrack, the bigger tire advantage they are going to have when they eventually do come down pit road. However, they will have to claw back a lot of the track position. So here comes the 42. He's going to take the tires now. Yep, problems on pit road entry.
Oh, boy. It was just starting to get loose, and he was saving it, and he was saving it, and then he couldn't. And off to the side he slides. He's going to lose even more time because of that. And he also has a black flag, so he must have been speeding on his way into the lane.
I'm not surprised because that spin started before the pit road speed limit cones. Probably just carried that momentum over the limit. And let's get the replay here. So the 42 is going to be coming down pit road, hard on the brakes, and the apron doesn't upset him. I wonder if it's just the downshift. Yeah, it looked like a downshift and just a rear lockup.
Yeah, it happened so suddenly there from the onboard. I'm with you. Oh, but we got a yellow. Is that McManus? It is. Oh, my goodness. Dramatic developments in this race with plenty of the front runners. And this was McManus making contact with Kaufman.
Very interesting here. We're going to get this replay, and this was down the back straightaway here. This was a little bit of an odd one, and I'm going to kind of chalk this up to a little bit of some ghost contact, some net code. I do see the 9 car coming down the racetrack just a touch, but Joe, you know in iRacing, sometimes they kind of feel like magnets and they hook towards each other.
Yeah, exactly. And that could be what's happening here because they're running close, and you have to run close in oval racing. Maybe not that close. And yeah, they just wind up tangling, and McManus gets the worst of it. Now I think, well, no, he's trapped a lap down. So all those drivers or many of those drivers who pitted early, unfortunately, were not able to get their laps back yet. Just, I think, a small handful, about 2 or 3 did.
So here comes the race leader, Brandon Evans. Now he is currently on lap 77, and iRacing timing and scoring a little bit funky while all of this stuff kind of gets their wave arounds and everybody back out onto the road. But what should happen is the 39 should cycle out into the lead on fresh tires, and everybody else just kind of has to deal the cards that they've been dealt.
Well, speaking of those cards, I think some drivers are out of some of them because Patrick Drabick is pitting his 3rd time. So is Pendleton. And it looks like Brandon Wallace. Those were, I think, the 3 drivers that got their lap back. So they're going to take the chance to get fresh tires despite only having put 10 laps on the previous ones. But this means they cannot basically come in and change their tires again. They're out of them.
And I see that Jonathan Cofield did not come down pit road, so he has 6 laps on his tires. Now, that might not seem like a lot, but there is fall off here at Kansas. The fastest laps we've seen are in the 31-second range, and once they get going, they're up in the 33s, touching the 34.0s. So 6 laps might be a big difference once we get 20 laps into this thing.
And guess who's in 2nd place? Brandon Evans has managed to use the strategy to get himself where he wants to be. McManus, that's McManus, though, on the low side. He was in the grass. How in the world did he get down? Did he make contact with the same driver? He did. Uh-oh. Oh, we got tempers brewing. He and Kaufman had it coming together again. And I always hate to try and assume what's going on, but this does not look like a friendly touch between them.
Well, if you are out there watching, you can be the judge. It's not often that you see a car pass everybody else on the racetrack and then go say hello to one specific buddy out there. So, Joe, we'll just leave that one up to speculation.
Yeah, the stewards will know more. And, they'll be able to talk to the drivers. So that was an interesting development on that one. Before we get back to going green flag racing, we do want to mention another of our sponsors, Cruising Classics. Located in Columbus, Ohio, Cruising Classics has a beautiful 56,000 square foot showroom filled with hundreds of unique automobiles. There is something for everybody out of their hand-picked selection of muscle cars and hot rods. Come on down to visit the facility today or check out their website at cruisingclassicsinc.com. Definitely got to get my way over there at some point to try and see that. It's just 2 hours up the road from me. I think we're going to get the 1 to go signal here pretty soon. So about, I think, 20 lap shootout to the end, it looks like.
Interesting kind of pairing we've got up front. And the other driver, I actually want to give a big shout out to, that number 99 that's sitting in 3rd place. I always think that Brandon Wallace doesn't ever show up in qualifying, right? He just kind of runs his pace and just does his thing, but every single race, he always works his way forward, and when it comes time to the finish, he finds himself in a great position. Here he is, sitting in 3rd, up 13 today.
Wow, just great stuff from that 99. Like we said, sometimes there's drivers that you don't get to see as much, but kind of quietly do their thing. And Brandon Wallace going to potentially get a podium if he can hold on to this. So let's see what happens from here, as we still have 22 cars out on the racetrack despite a couple yellows today. Cofield going to restart them from the front with slightly older tires. He is under a lot of pressure, hoping that he can keep up the pace compared to those behind him on freshies. Here we go. Green flag held aloft, and there it is. Green flag is out. Cofield with a big jump, though. He was trying to make good use of that clear air while he can.
And the 39 actually did a very smart move. He was tempted to go down to the bottom side of the racetrack, but did not. So the first two wide as the 07 fallen a little bit further back. That's Ryan Pendleton scooting through for the 4th place position. But look at the run that Brandon Evans has. Is this the tires coming alive already?
Oh, it absolutely is. He's coming around the outside with a head full of steam. He doesn't fully have it yet, but he's got the momentum. He's clear. He's going to lead the lap just as the yellow comes out.
Wow, got the track position, got the fresh tires, and he'll be in charge of the restart. I'm taking a look to see where this yellow flag might have popped up here, and looks like we're just going to gather them all back up and get them lined back up again.
So I think that was thrown by race control intentionally. It looks like there were some black flags maybe on that restart, and they were unhappy with how some of them were given. I wonder if somebody just had a bad start and a bunch of drivers were given penalties that they didn't deserve. Just speculating here, but regardless, we do know it was a manually thrown yellow, and they're going to try and reline them up and get them going once again.
I think there's kind of... They might be looking at the restart here, Joe. I noticed a little bit further back, it was just kind of all jumbled up, and we also had some cars that were getting their lap back during that kind of yellow flag period, during the wave around. So I think between iRacing and race control, just trying to make sure everybody's in the right position, doing the right thing for the show.
Yep. And Mullins looks like he's one of those that's getting a wave around in this, so he'll get back on the lead lap. But unfortunately, 13th on down, they're still trapped a lap down from the leader because of that unfortunate yellow earlier on. While we've got the chance, I want to mention Red Beard Design Company. Red Beard Design Co. is a brand design and creative agency out of Greenfield, Indiana. They do brand identity, illustration, advertisements, apparel, packaging, and posters. All of GLR's logos since day one are the creation of Red Beard Design Company. So when you see GLR anywhere, you're seeing Red Beard Design. Big thank you to them for sponsoring Goat Locker Racing's Truck Series. So even fewer laps now if we manage to sprint to the finish. Remember, we have 2 green-white checkers, and we're starting to get a little bit of a spate of these yellows at the end of the race.
It kind of spices everything up. I don't expect to see anybody come down pit road, and if I do, it's going to be further in the back of the pack. Maybe the 27 of Jake Ellingson. This might be a good opportunity maybe for him to come down pit road. Maybe Chuck Phelps as well, as long as they've still got some tires that they can throw on the truck. But right now it's Brandon Evans on the freshest stuff. He's going to have Cofield lined up behind him. And actually, no, my mistake, Joe, we missed this. Looked like Cofield came down pit road.
Interesting. Okay, so decided he wanted to use that last set and just drop some track position and fight his way forward, especially, I mean, you saw how quickly he went backwards. I guess it mattered more to him that he had the pace and be able to fight for it than try and play the rear guard. But this does mean that Brandon Evans might be in one of the best positions. He still has a set. Matt Knights still has a set, and he's on the lead lap. Other than those two, there is nobody on the lead lap with a tire set left.
And I like Cofield's strategy of coming down to get those tires. I think that if he wants a chance at winning the race, that's probably his only chance at winning the race, because you're not going to beat Brandon Evans on fresher stuff. However, all the cars that came down earlier, they only got 1 green flag lap on that set of tires. So I just don't think that the disparity between the sets is going to be big enough for the 53 to crawl all the way back up there. It was just kind of a tough position that he was in for sure.
Yeah, you make a good point on that. Is kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, and just kind of had to make a call and hope that it works out. That said, it also depends on it being green, I think, for him to be able to use those tires for anything. And if the last few laps have said anything, it looks like things are going to slow down a bit here at the end of this race, which will make it harder for him to try to make the overtakes that he needs for a potential win today. Is this Brandon Evans' chance to shine? Considering he's one of the drivers that has not won yet this season, but leads the points of those above the cut that haven't won. I think he could use that to really lock himself in.
It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. We're going to be coming to the green with 15 laps to go. Everybody on the racetrack with some good tires. It is time to get those elbows out and race it to the finish.
Unless you're Matt Knights, he's still on 13-lap-old tires, but he's down in 6. I can't imagine he's going to be very fast on this restart compared to those around him. We'll see if it does hurt him as the green flag is out and Brandon Evans gets himself a pretty good launch. Pendleton going to get a little bit of help from Drabick. No, he's not. Drabick goes up to the high side and actually brushes the wall when he runs out of racetrack.
Yeah, got a little bit of a misjudgment there, and now it's going to be Wallace and Drabick side by side for that third place position. And Cofield already making the move down low on Alan Marshall, so he's trying to get the clean air while Brandon Evans runs away.
He still has Pendleton behind him, though. Can he hold him back? Will Pendleton even be a threat in these last 14 laps now as they cross the start-finish line and head on down into turn 1 once again? Middle of the pack, still all kinds of jumbled up. You can see how many too wide there are back there.
And I've really got my eye on that 07 of Patrick Drabick. Remember how fast that top of the racetrack has been early in these fuel stints. Are we going to see the 39? Yes, he moves to the top side. He's going to block that momentum. So here comes Ryan Pendleton. He's going to have a run off of turn 4.
Go where they are, prevent the momentum. Looks like it's working, at least for now. This will force Pendleton to do what he doesn't want to. Try the bottom side. He'll try and pinch him down. In fact, they'll get very close to one another. They don't make contact. Guess who's coming to dinner now? Drabick has decided now's his time to shine. He takes P2.
Had that door open and used the momentum down the back straightaway, and now he takes the clean air away from Pendleton down low. I expect Evans to have a decent run off of 4 here, so it'll be kind of as it is through turn 1 and 2 here. Going to have to get the run down the back straightaway.
Patrick's not going to sit around on this one. He's another driver that needs a win here to lock himself into the postseason. Can he manage to overtake Evans? He falls back a little bit on this latest lap from that number 39 as he's setting himself up.
Once again, taking away the clean air from Drabick on the top side, and I feel like Evans is a little bit faster on the bottom of the racetrack, but right now with only 11 laps remaining, like you were saying, Joe, it's all about going and kind of blocking that clean air from everybody else.
And guess who's looking pretty quick? 4th place, Jonathan Cofield. Are those tires actually that much better despite maybe a lap and a half of green flag racing on them, or on everybody else's compared to his rather? And he's got it down to just a few tenths up to the top 3. We're on board with him now.
Well, let's kind of bring out the magic 8-ball here. Is he going to get up here and fight with them? Yes, for sure. He will be a contender for the race win if it's when it comes down to it. But it's just how much has the 39 burned off those tires battling with Drabick?
Oh, man. Matt Knights apparently hit the wall, didn't bring out the yellow. I'm trying to actually find... Oh, so he got some help, it looks like. I think from Jeremy Gardner, so that's what put him into the wall. And now Matt Knights has been in pit lane taking those repairs, and it looks like he'll get back out on track, but he's now multiple laps down. Meanwhile, the battle between Evans, Drabick, and Pendleton has really been joined by Cofield. He's caught the back of the 23.
He's got to dispatch Ryan Pendleton, and the longer he takes to do this, the more and more Brandon Evans is going to run away. And the same thing with Patrick Drabick, because quite honestly, if the 23 doesn't keep up, he's just bringing them both down with them. And I think the clean air and the tires are starting to settle in. They're starting to plateau.
They swing across that trioval once again. Less than 10 laps left in this race. We saw Jonathan do great work to try and catch up to this group, but now he's got to try and pass them, and it does look to be a bit of a task. Pendleton's not letting him have it easy.
Here we go.
Oh,
and
caution.
we've got another yellow flag on the racetrack, and this is the 82 car. Alan Marshall spinning down to the inside, so really late in the race. This kind of throws a wrench in things.
And this is weirdly similar to what we saw earlier. Regis Clark is just going to turn him around on the straightaway. Again, doesn't look like anything egregious, but drivers having a little bit of trouble listening to the spotters on the back straightaway, apparently.
Regis and egregious in the same sentence. I'm going to give you an applause over here, Joe, but you're right. It did look like just kind of a front right to a left rear back here. See if we can get this onboard shot exactly here from the number 8 car. And he's clearly got the run down the straightaway, but then he drifts up the racetrack, and I don't think it looked intentional, but he definitely hooked him.
Yeah, and that's what brings out our yellow. We should be able to get back going green before we get to the checkers, so we won't see the GWC come out this time. But if we get another yellow before we get to that white flag, then we will go into overtime for this series. It seems like the intensity has ramped up a bit. Drivers giving a little less room to one another out there, and that's bringing out the pace car maybe one too many times at the end of this race. We've lost Trevor McManus, by the way, for the curious, as our latest driver to be out of this race. He was given a black flag before that, so again, that's a make your own conclusions sort of scenario as to what happened to him. Matt Knight's taking further repairs while he can on pit lane. And I think George Jewell is the one that loves this caution the most, because he gets the lucky dog and goes back onto the lead lap.
Yep, exactly. That 36 did get that lucky dog, so he'll get up there and go get to party with his buddies for more points positions. But I'm really curious here. This kind of plays even more into Brandon Evans' hands and Patrick Drabick, Ryan Pendleton. They've all kind of plateaued on the tires. I think the only thing that Cofield is looking for here is that he's not, what was it, about a second and a half behind the leader, and he's actually going to restart. He'll actually restart, on the top side, so it's not going to have that whole shot of being able to watch the 39 go. It'll be very interesting sprint to the end.
Yeah, and Evans is not going to risk coming in to take tires, it looks like. As I mentioned earlier, he's the only driver now at the lead lap who has a set waiting for him, and he could give up that track position, but I think you might as well try and stick it out, even though it'd probably be worth just huge amounts of pace at this stage now that we've gotten some on the board for our drivers. Still need to cycle around another 2 laps before we go back to green flag racing. That means, I believe, about a 3-lap shootout then.
And Joe, you were mentioning the pace difference between the fresh tires and the old tires, and it's all of that management game is, can the pace get you back up to that track position that you lose coming down pit road? And I think given the time that we have left, given the limited laps that we have left, I just don't see that pace overcoming that track position difference.
Now, I'm being told that Jamie Mullins has tires, but he's pitted 4 times. Some of that was probably for damage, I'm assuming, since, I mean, you only can pit 3 times for tires. Battery took 2 on one of them and then took 2 on another, but that would still cost him 1. But yeah, not sure. I mean, it would be worth it because he is on the lead lap if he does actually have a set, but it's hard to say. He just stopped this last time. So did he actually take a set this time, I wonder? If that's the case, then, I mean, it's 3 laps and 10 cars to pass, but even still, if he took 4 tires this last one, then he could suddenly shock everybody.
And if he took 4 fresh tires, now, I spend enough time on iRacing. I really should know these things, Joe, but can you put scrubs on
No.
the wall?
Nope.
So, all right, then he did take a fresh set, and you're right, we'll have to keep an eye out.
I saw a thread actually of drivers asking, "What's the next big thing after rain that is going to be a huge step?" And someone suggested scrubbing or reusing tire sets, and I thought that actually would be really cool if they could implement that. I'd love to see that someday. But in this case, man, whatever tires they had used in this are probably still going to be worn out if you try and put them back on at this stage for most of them. So I don't know if that theory would really work, even if it was the case. Regardless, this is going to be just a wild, wild finish. Evans up at the top, trying to hold off a lot of quick drivers to lock himself into the postseason as we get ready to head to the green with 3 to go. Will we get to the checkered flag without seeing a GWC? Green flag is out. We need 2 green flag laps to make this one official.
Evans with a great hole shot out front. It is Pendleton on the low side. Drabick up top. Cofield goes even further up top. He's actually going to go side by side with the 99 of Wallace, not at all what the 53 wanted.
Pretty decent start for Evans, but Pendleton is looking quick right now. He gets good momentum down the backstretch. Meanwhile, down on the bottom side, Cunningham looks like he's also threatening. Oh, and Cofield. Look at Cofield there, trying to challenge for 3rd place. 2 laps to go now, though.
And here we go up front. Pendleton is side by side with Brandon Evans, our leader. Pendleton down low. The momentum's going to go to Evans down the back straightaway. And like you said, here comes Cofield in 3rd.
Evans has the desired high line. Will the shot off the final corner make the difference here as they get ready to come to the white flag? Car in the background up in the wall. I think that's the 8 machine. Something happening to them. We'll cover it in a bit as they come off of the corner. White flag held aloft. They cross. It's official now. We're going to the end no matter what. Still underneath them. Pendleton challenging on Evans as we still have a battle for 3rd as well between Cofield and Drabick. Much better run for Evans on the top side. Pendleton actually getting a push now. Almost a super speedway race as Drabick is doing his best. Cofield is doing his best to get him up there. Evans on the high side as they come off of 4. He's got a nose ahead. He's got the momentum. He's got the win here at Kansas.
Pendleton finishing 2nd, Cofield 3rd, Drabick 4th, and I believe it was Jamie Mullins finishing inside the top 5. No, it was Brandon Wallace finishing in 5th there. It was so close, but it was Brandon Evans up front with the awesome tire strategy late in the race, able to hold off everybody on multiple yellow flag restarts. The first win for the 39.
Speaking of good tire strategy, Mullins up to the top 5 after making that stop. So it did work out pretty well. I think it was much higher up than he was before the pit stop, as Evans going to celebrate here today down at the start-finish line, doing some burnouts as there we get his camera, seeing him wheeling that thing and lighting them up. He has got to be thrilled with himself to finally broke that duck. So now that he's got himself a little bit of fun today, what does he do from here until the postseason? As we watch him continue to celebrate down there, I think we're going to take a glance at results here in a moment for today's race. 100 laps here definitely gave us plenty of excitement. And Evans, your winner by less than a 1/10 of a second over Pendleton in the end. He kept him honest. Cofield wound up in 3rd, and Patrick Drabick was 4th. Jamie Mullins took his last set of tires, held on to them to the very end, and that netted him a 5th place. Brandon Wallace was P6, coming up from 16th, not too shabby, as Daniel Cunningham was 7th and Steve McDonald was 8th. Timothy Stubblefield from 20th to 9th today, then sees Alan Marshall in 10th position.
Then in 11th, we have George Jewell. Regis Clark finishes up in 12th. Jake Ellingson here in 13th. James Kaufman in 14th. Chuck Phelps finishing up in the 15th place position. Jeremy Gardner ran up front all day long, and then everything fell apart on that pit road entry, coupled with the yellow flag, really put him behind the 8 ball. So he finishes 16th. Doug Ellingson in 17th, James Goshen 18th, Jamie Barkis in 19th, Matt Nice a handful of laps down here in 20th, Mark McCrary, Trevor McManus, and the rest of the company unfortunately did not see the checkered flag.
So that will take us to our winner here today, Brandon Evans in Victory Lane, who has been waiting for this moment, I'm pretty sure, and has been working hard toward it. Evans, we've been talking about how your strategy is good, but you just haven't seemed to have things kind of fall in your favor. It looks like tonight was your night.
Yeah, I usually try to the same approach each race, and sometimes it works out, right? Yeah, just a bad caution timing earlier in the race. It seemed like it was going to work. I don't know if I was going to run down the leader or not, but I was going to take a stab at it. The second half, trying the tire save method was a little better because I was right at the tail end of the top 10, so I knew if I could get to that pack, then I'd have a shot. Then everybody started pitting, and then just kind of went from there.
So coming around at the end, a 3-lap shootout, you knew that Ryan and Jonathan and Patrick were all going to be putting the pressure on. What was your mindset? What was your strategy to try and fend them off? Was it to stick to that high line no matter what?
Yeah, to be honest, full send. I didn't have any other way to do it. I knew that they were going to have the draft advantage, and just and gang up on me. So try my best to aero block and side draft, through turn one there. Um, and that's just about all you can do. I and Cofield back there with the fresh tires, so wasn't sure what kind of move he was going to make, but yeah, just stick to the top and trail break it a little bit and full send. Don't lift.
All right. So you're now locked into the postseason with this win. What do you do when we head off to North Wilkesboro next week?
Well, now you can try a little bit more aggressive strategy. Maybe I could try to run a little harder, and just run up front with these guys instead of just hanging back. So we'll see how it goes. There's just still a couple of really good races that we have before the postseason. So try a few things out and mount up a good charge for through the playoffs.
Well, excellent job out there, both with the strategy and with the racecraft, sir. Go enjoy your win.
Thank you.
Oh, and one before you go, actually, I just realized we need to ask you who helped put you in victory lane.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Jam Printing and Promotions. I want to thank Premier Racing Setups, providing really great setups for everybody this season. Veterans for Life Foundation, Cruising Classics right now, Roofing, and Redbeard Design Company. Take a look, and we appreciate all their support. And as always, Goat Locker Racing.
That was Brandon Evans, your winner here today at Kansas Speedway. Looks like we've got second place finisher Ryan Pendleton talking with Joey.
Ryan Pendleton, let me read off the final 3 races. You won second place and you backed it up with another second place. Talk about some momentum. How does it feel?
Yeah, momentum feels good for sure. I said it before. Anytime you can get anywhere near the front with the talent we have in this league it feels good. It was a ton of fun. I didn't think tonight was going to be a ton of fun during the practice, but it turned out to be a better race than I expected.
Talk me through the last couple laps there with that restart with Evans and Cofield behind you. Did you feel that the low lane could get it done, or did you kind of feel boxed in down there?
No, I felt good on the low lane, especially those first couple laps if your tires are cooled off. I knew I'd be able to keep up. Whether or not I'd keep the momentum down the front stretch to make the pass, I didn't know. And it was tough because I hadn't ran with Brandon much all night. I knew how fast Cofield and my teammate Pat was. I wasn't sure where Brandon was going to run. I knew he's quick because he's always quick. But so I felt good about it. And I know Cofield was pushing me from behind, trying to get himself and myself up there. But, just didn't quite have the momentum coming off of 4 to get it done.
Well, like I said, back-to-back second places, and you back that up with a win right before it. Are we going to see you back in victory lane, maybe North Wilkesboro, Atlanta, before the regular season, quote unquote, ends?
That's the goal. I'm always coming out here trying to win. That's the fun part of it. I like short tracks. I like Wilkesboro. So We'll see. It's just so tough. There's so much talent, and you never know any week what guy's gonna step up and be running up front. So I think we have another new winner tonight. Not that it's any surprise being Brandon, but just a lot of different winners in this league. So I hope so. We hope to at least be up front and then challenge for the win.
Well, I like that bit of info that you gave us there that you like short track, so we'll definitely have to keep an eye out there for you at North Wilkesboro. And before I let you go, is there anybody that you want to give a shout out to?
Absolutely, as always. You guys doing this broadcast, it's awesome. Podium broadcasts are just great. Thank you for doing them for us. All my teammates that are out there tonight and the guys that weren't able to make it at Goat Locker, we love anytime we can get our trucks up front, and we're always working together. Jam Printing Promotions, awesome partner and sponsor, the lead sponsor of this league. Premier Racing Setups, as always, once again, not a big truck fan, but they've made it enjoyable with the setups they provide for us. And Veterans for Life, as always, those guys, Jamie, are doing huge things for our league and our nonprofit. Cruising Classics, which sponsors our Wednesday night series. They're an awesome hot rod shop out of Columbus, Ohio. Right Now Roofing and Red Beard Design Company, and everyone else that supports Goat Locker.
Well, that was Ryan Pendleton coming home with another second place finish here today at Kansas.
And that takes us to third place, Jonathan Cofield, who is definitely up
Nope.
towards the front for most of it. Jonathan, you were another driver that we saw down on the bottom line quite frequently. Did that just save the tires a little bit more? Because it seemed like the drivers that did that tend to kind of come to the fore in late in the stint.
Yeah, most definitely could save the stuff on the bottom. Patrick, he was committed to that top side. You know, he could run away, but seemed like about halfway of a stint, you know, I could start running him back down. Definitely saved the tires. Track temp was pretty high, so you kind of had to be on your tippy toes coming around the bottom. But the few times I got in the top side, it was about the same way.
Coming to the end of the race, you were in that top group there, but like you said, it looked like it was tough on the short run to try and make any sort of passes. What was your strategy to try and take that win away from Evans?
I don't know. All the cautions just fell the wrong way. I think I had a pretty good chance of winning the thing if we wouldn't have had a couple late cautions there. Tire strategy got a little off. They pitted and I didn't that one time, so that kind of put me behind the 8 ball. But which I don't know. Pendleton was blocking the bottom pretty good. That's not all I could do. Was just try to push him ahead of everybody. So kind of like running at a super speedway there. We was just all stacked up, couldn't go nowhere. So still happy to get a podium though.
Yeah, don't blame you on that. Well, we go from a track that is considered, I guess, part of the cookie cutter era to a track that is completely not that. A very short half miler that is asymmetrical and has all kinds of weird uniqueness at North Wilkesboro. Are you looking forward to that, or is that one of those circuits that you find difficult?
Yeah, I find it difficult. Haven't ran it a lot. Probably get some practice in. It kind of suits my driving style, so maybe I can learn some stuff through the week to maybe help me out for the race.
Well, best of luck on that. And most of all, who helped get you onto the podium today?
You guys at Podium for doing the broadcast. Appreciate y'all coming on. Love to go back. Usually right after the race, stay up late and watch the broadcast. Jam Printing Promotions for sponsoring our truck series. Of course, Premier Racing Setups got them on the truck. Built an awesome setup tonight. It was fast for sure. Veterans for Life Foundation, Cruising Classics, Right Now Roofing, Red Beard Design Company. My teammates at Bandits Motorsports, SM Racing Products got some dang good button boxes, man. Type in code J Cofield at checkout, get yourself 15% off. Cofield Supply and Service, Cofield Asphalt Refinishing.
Thank you very much. That was Jonathan Cofield, your third place finisher here today at Kansas. Joey, we've now had 6 different winners in 7 races. This is a highly competitive series.
I love seeing it. You show up to a new track every single week, and yes, we do have our regular group of fast drivers up front. However, it hasn't been the same guy in victory lane every single time. Like you said, only one repeat winner, and we're going to an old school racetrack. Is it going to bring another?
I got a feeling that we could see this carry on, but we need you to tune in to find out as well. So make sure and join us for the next race at North Wilkesboro, Friday, March 15th at 8:15 p.m. Eastern. Also, a huge thanks to those behind the scenes at Podium Esports, Ryan and Rachel Bauer, and thanks to the team today, Eddie, Joey, and Dougie. However, until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.